We are now on patch 13.24b, and here is the best performing comps in the current patch and how to play them. This patch is also called 13.25, and it's also the patch that we will be playing on until the 10th of January, and even the new patch was only supposed to give a few buffs. The big nerf on 5-cost roll down at level 9 have changed the meta a lot. But let's start out with the strongest comp in the game, Fast 9. So the big change at level 9 is when we are rolling down at level 9, we have a small chance to hit the 5-cost units as headliner. And that means we either have to go for level 10 or we have to choose another unit as our headliner. So what we are looking for is the standard comp with the 2 Guardians in the front line, the 2 Bruisers, putting our tank items on Illari, putting our Bruiser items on Yorick. Then we have big shots where we are picking one of these units as our headliner and then buffing up the overall team with other 5-cost units or whatever fits the comp. So as I just said, we can no longer guarantee to get ourselves a 5-cost headliner unit. And that means we have to go for something like Ezreal. Ezreal will more or less be the new headliner units in this Fast 9 comp. You're playing it in exactly the same way as before. You're trying to lose as little health as possible, using all your gold to get up in levels. I put in Tiny Titans here instead of all the other augments that give us more gold. It is simply just all of them. But else, Last Stand and Cybernetic Bulk is also good. When it comes to the backline, we are putting in items like these. Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, and then we can go for Rage Blade on Ezreal. We could also go for Blue Buff. If we are in the situation where we get to this board, and having Ezreal as our headliner, we could have a few more Ezreals on the bench. If we get to level 10, we will just put in whatever fits. Let's just say it's a Zac unit. And then we can sell Ezreal and then do a roll down to hit either Lauri or Jhin as our headliner. Then we can just put in Ezreal again to make sure that we are getting the traits active, especially if we are hitting Jhin as our headliner. Other headliners that we are looking for at level 10 is Illari, Yorick, Lucian, but else we're just going for Ezreal. It is still the best performing comp, but you have to settle with a 4-cost unit as the headliner until you're getting to level 10. Next up, we have Ahri Reroll. And Ahri Reroll is by far the best 1-cost unit comp there is. Are you getting a lot of Ahri units early and also any headliner unit, you will go for this comp no matter what. It is by far the best one. You could also just pick up Ahri as a headliner and then use her for like an item holder for some of the other comps, but Ahri Reroll is by far the strongest 1-cost comp. What headliner Ahri you get doesn't really matter that much. You can use both of them. It's just changing the board just a little bit. Are we going for a headliner with Spellweaver? This is gonna be your board. You're basically just saving all your gold until you're hitting 50 gold, and then you're using all gold above 50 to roll down to hit Ahri to 3-star. When you have done that, you can start going up in level and start adding in the other units and start putting in more items on Echo, Neeko, and Ahri. We are playing super fans, and that means we're getting an item for free. In one of the last patches, they did change the item that Ahri gets, and that means she's now getting Jewel Gauntlet, and that also means we have to put in these 2 items. Go for a Soulshin and go for a Tooth. It is her best items. As soon as we have done that, we can start prioritizing items on the front line, and from here we can put in items on Ahri. Obviously, we are only going for 1 Sunfire Cape, and you can just put items on either Echo or Neeko, just depending on who you're getting up to 2-star first. When it comes to augments, we can go for something like Pandora's to get the specific items that we want. We can also go for a grab bag to get some more units faster. And we can go for a specific one like raise the tempo. Are we getting to level 8 and are playing the other one where we are having Emo instead? We can drop a Mumu and then we can just put in one other Spellweaver. And in the early game, it's either gonna be Gragas or Seraphine. But obviously in the late game, we will put in Sona. This is gonna be our level 8 board in the best case if we have Emo. Are we going to cap out the board? At level 9, we will put in either Sona and then just adding something like Yorick. You could also just put in something like Thresh, and this will be your board. And are we having the one with Spellweaver? You could put in Thresh and Yorick to get 4 in Guidance. No matter what option you're going for, if you get to level 9, you have a super solid comp. Next up, we have Twisted Fate with Disco, and it is just the classic one that we all know. We are going for Blitzcrank in the front line with all the tank items. We're having Twisted Fate in the back line with attack speed or AP/mana items, and the same goes for 6. We are just building up around Disco and Dazzler all the way up, and when we get to level 8, we will do a roll down to hit either Twisted Fate or Blitz as our headliner. If we want Blitz, it has to be the Disco one. If we are going for Twisted Fate, we can choose either of them. So there's 3 options that we can choose between. When it comes to augments, we are going for a specific one, crit, or another specific one. It is just all about these classic one as Twisted Fate, buff him up as much as possible. And as you can see in the trait, we need one more from Disco, that could be from Blitz or Twisted Fate. We could also have one more in Dazzler, and that could also come from Twisted Fate. This is the level 9 board, and obviously before you're finding one of these 2 units, you could also go for something like Lux instead of 6, or you can just go for something like Sec instead of Ilaoi before you're finding them. So basically just put in one of these 2 units, and when you get up to level 9 or level 8 or whenever you hit them, you're just gonna put them in instead. And I do recommend that you're having most of your units to 2-star before you start going to level 9 and adding in the stronger units. Next up we have Country Samira. And this is just all about getting 5 in country. So the headliners that we're looking for is either Samira or Urgoth. And what we want to do is to have, in the best case, Samira as the headliner where she's having country. The other option we have is having Urgoth with country, but we could also have Samira as a headliner who is an executioner. If this is the situation, we have to play Katarina to get 5 in that trait. And that also means we have to drop a unit, and that is probably gonna be Vex. So we're still having 2 executioners, but 5 in country. But hopefully we are getting country, and that means we can skip Katarina, and this is gonna be your level 8 board. The level 7 board, which is the board that we are looking for in the start of the game, is obviously going to be without Ilaoi. And that means this is the board that you're looking for. We are mainly going to 3-star Samira. The same goes for Urgoth if he is the headliner. And whatever unit you are hitting first to 3-star, Zed or Amumu, is gonna be the one that are holding the tank items. Other items that we're getting is just gonna go on Thresh. And Urgoth is obviously going for the bruiser items like Titan, Bloodthirster, Red Buff. It could also be something like Edge of Night or Hand of Justice. The most important items that we are going for is for Samira, and that is Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, and Giant Slayer. We could change out Giant Slayer, but all of these items is her biz items. As soon as we're getting our headliner to 3-star, we can go up in level to stabilize the board just a little bit more. And here we are mainly going for just the strongest frontline unit that we can find. So that could be something like a Zac. It could also be Ilaoi if we are lucky. And then we're having our strongest level 8 board. Are we in the situation where we are getting to level 9, we will add in something like Zac instead. Are we in the situation where we're having the other headliner, then as mentioned before, we are playing with Katarina. And that means we are not playing with Zac, we're gonna play with something like Karthus to having 4 in Executioner and 5 in Country. Are we getting to this point with the Executioner one as the headliner? We are having almost a strong comp as if we had a headliner with Country according to the stats. When it comes to augments, we are looking for something to get more units, a specific one from the trait, and Pandora's to get the specific items that we're looking for. Next up we have Ahri Carry with either Spellweaver or KDA. So if we are going for the Spellweaver one, we are going for this board and having Ahri as a headliner with Spellweaver. That means we're gonna have 5 in KDA and 5 in Spellweaver. Before we're getting to this point, we can use something like Annie as our build-up unit. We can play around the Superfan units and Annie and giving her the items that we later will transfer over to Ahri. In the mid game, we can play around something like Lulu and even using her as the headliner if we're finding her. And then when we get to level 8, we will do a roll down and try to hit Ahri. When it comes to augments, we're just looking for combat augments. Since this is a very easy board to hit, we are just going for something that gives us more crit, giving the overall team more damage, or even having more time. And when it comes to building items, we are prioritizing building items for Ahri first. That could be something like a blue buff, it could be Jewel Gauntlet and Gnash Your Tooth. It could also be something like a Giant Slayer. It could also be a Gunblade. After we have items for our backline, we need items for the frontline, and that will be for Nico or Echo, whoever we are getting to 2-star first. And when we have a few items on one of these 2 units, we can start building items for Akali. She wants healing items like Bloodthirster and Hands of Justice, and Red Buff is doing quite well on her as well, so you can also just easily go for that. Are we getting to level 9? We will simply just put in Senna, since she is the best unit for this board. If we instead are going for the KDA version instead of the Spellweaver, we are simply again just doing the same build up. When we get to level 8, we'll do a roll down, and here we can go for either Akali or Ahri. Are we hitting Ahri as the headliner? We will have 6 in this trade, and that means we need 1 more unit to get to 7. And we will basically just take out Lulu and then put in 1 more unit. And in this case, this will be Kai'Sa. Now we have 7 in the trade, and this is what we are looking for. We could also go for Akali as a headliner, and that could easily be KDA as well, but it could also be Executioner. Are we getting the Executioner one? I just want to mention that you kinda have to go to level 9 to do some good performance. It is good when you just hit it, but it will be scaled out, and that means you kinda have to go up in level. And here we're looking for something that gives us the last trait. Since Evelynn isn't really giving anything else than the trait, we are basically more or less just looking for the KDA if possible. And that means we don't have to play Evelynn, and we can play something else that buff off the team a little bit more. And that could be something like Karthus, since Karthus is a way better unit than Evelynn. Other options to Karthus could also be Senna. It could also be something like Ilauri, since Ilauri is just an overall super good unit. Next up, we have True Damage Senna. And obviously Senna gonna be the carry. We are looking to get her to 3-star, and she has to be the headliner as well. Are we going for True Damage or the Rapid Fire one? Doesn't really matter. You can use both of them. You just have to hit her as the headliner. We are playing Superfans, and that means we are getting an item for free. And when it comes to Senna, we are getting the Shojin one for free. And that means we want to build something like Tooth or something like Rageblade. We could also just go for something like Jewel Gauntlet, but else items like this is probably her preferred one. After prioritizing items for Senna, we are looking for items for Echo, and here we'll just put in all the tank items. It could also be something like Sunfire Cape and Spark for anti-magic resist. When these 2 units have their items, we will look for items for Kali, and she will just have something like Edge of Night, Infinity Edge, and a healing item like Hand of Justice. It could also be Bloodthirster, and we will also put Akali and Kiana just a little bit in the back. Obviously, are we getting Senna as a true damage? We can just play this board, but are we not and having the headliner that are Rapid Fire? We will not play Failures, and then we kind of have to put in another unit to get 6 in the trade, and that will be Yasuo. Are we getting to this point with the headliner with Rapid Fire? We will add in something like Ahri and getting the KDA online, and then we have to move our units a little bit around so they're standing in the right position. And if we're getting the other one with true damage, we are not playing Yasuo, but we are again putting Ahri in, and then we need to have another unit. And in the first case, we are having a Failures as before, but whenever we get to the late game and we have the chance to put in Lucian instead, we are doing that. When it comes to augments, a specific one for the current trait that we are using, we could also go for something like Lucky Streak. If we are getting a Senna early, we can build up and getting a lot of gold, get her to 3-star fast, and then going just for a snowball up in levels. Getting more units faster is also a good option. It is just a comp that are performing really well, and it is just super easy to hit since we just need one of the Sennas as our headliner. Next up, we have EDM Lux, and here we are going for Lux as a 3-star and headliner, and she will basically just one-shot the backline. It is one of the older comps that have been coming back, and it is just super fun to just having a unit that are just one-shotting the backline, and it is probably just one of these comps that we will just see over again over the winter until we are seeing the next patch. EDM is just a little bit different from all the other traits. We are getting an item that we have to put on one of the units, and at some point they will all transform into that unit and use their spell. So if we are playing this comp, we will put it on Lux, and then we will see all of our EDM units transform into Lux and use Lux spell. This will not just make all of them use Lux spell, but it will also make Lux use her spell more often. And that is kind of what we are looking for. But basically, this is the board that we're looking for. And the one thing that is really important is we are getting either Lux, but we could also, in fact, use Jax as our headliner. The most important thing is that we are getting the EDM. But there is also another comp where we are playing around Jax, but in this case, this is the best board if we're getting the one for Lux. So let's just say we're getting Lux as our headliner, we're trying to get her to 3-star at level 7, and if we can get Jax to 3-star as well, that will just be great. Items that we're looking for is 1 mana item, and that will be Sojourn in the best case. We'll go for something like Dual Gauntlet to crit, and then we'll just go for something like Death Cap, but we could also go for something like Archangel. Death Cap in the best case, since she will just almost one-shot all the backline units no matter what. Go for tank/support items for Zac, Bruiser, damage items for Jax, and then we're just going for these healing, assassin, damage items for Zed. We are prioritizing Lux first, then Zed, then Zac, and then Jax in the end, depending of course on who we are hitting and who we are getting to 2-star first. When it comes to augments, I did put in Summit to the pit, since we can in fact play around the Musher units, but I'm gonna show you that in a bit in one of the other build-ups. We can also go for Too Big to Fall, since it got a big buff, and we are playing 4 bruises, so it can work in this one. If you have seen this before and try to play it, this is a board that you can look for, since it is making us able to go to level 7 fast and start putting in all of these units that we need. And obviously before we get to level 8, we will probably not have Ilauri and 6, and that means we just have to play some other units that fills in the gap. That will be another Bruiser, so your board at level 7 could look like this. Are we having Lux as Dazzler for some reason? We can just put in another unit. Are we having her as EDM? We kind of have to put in another Dazzler, and as you can see, that could be something like Bard. It could also be something like Nami, just whatever. Are we getting to level 9? We could choose between putting in something like Kiana, or we could also put in something like Yorick. Both of these 2 units are super strong right now and are very useful in this comp. Next up, we have Jax Reroll, and this is basically just the other option that we have when we want to play EDM, and here we're having Jax as our main carry. We want to get to level 6 as fast as possible, do a roll down to hit as many Jax units as possible. If we are contested, we want to have Jax as our headliner and also having a lot of Jax units so other players cannot hit the headliner. Basically, it doesn't really matter which one you are hitting. If you're getting the one where we're having Musher, we are obviously having 6 way easier, but else we have to play around one of these 2 other units that we don't have in the start. But else we have to play around one of the other 2 units that we don't have on this board, and that means we have to play Vi earlier in the game. Here we are again playing the same augment, and we are also picking up whatever that makes us get more units faster. When it comes to items, we are looking for Jax items first, and his Biz items is Gauntlet, Bloodthirster, and Titans. And from here we can put items on Zed or Poppy. Poppy is a super strong unit, especially if she is having 6 in the trait. You could use these kind of tank items, but you could also just put in items like there is on Urgoth here. Is this the situation that we are having items like this? We are obviously only going to play with Sunfire Cape on one of these, but else we're just going to put in items that are similar as Urgoth on Poppy. Are we getting extra items? We can just put it on Zac or Zed or Lux, and we're going to put the EDM item on Zac. Obviously, whenever we can, we're going to put in Yorick and taking out Vi instead. And this will more or less be the strongest board that we can make with this comp. Next up, we have Crowd Diver. And Crowd Diver can be played in 3 different options. That could be with Katarina as our headliner, as a Crowd Diver. It could be as Yone with the Crowd Diver. And it could be with Zed as the Crowd Diver. It doesn't really matter which one that you are going for, but let's quickly just go over all of them. Are we having Katarina as the headliner? We are playing this sport where we are getting this Hand of Justice for free from the super fans, and else we're just gonna get her to 3-star, and then we're just gonna build up. We always want the one with Crowd Diver. We can never use the other one. It is one of the worst headliners in the game, and it's no use in this board. Do we get her as the headliner? We're just gonna get her to 3-star, and then we're just gonna go up in levels and add in the other units. Are we in a situation where we are getting Katarina to 2-star fairly quickly and have a lot of gold and a lot of experience and a lot of health? We can just go faster up in levels and see if we can hit Yone as our headliner. Is this the situation where we're hitting him as the headliner with Crowd Diver? We're gonna play the exactly same board and just go again, get him to 3-star, maybe at level 7 or level 8, and play the full board. Are we in a kind of same situation as Katarina? We are just getting a Yone fairly quickly to 2-star. We are having someone random unit that we are playing as our headliner. We are again just going up in levels fast and go to level 8 and get Set as our headliner. All of these 3 units can be the one. It doesn't really matter which one it is. You just have to prioritize getting Katarina to 3-star if she is the headliner. The same goes for Yone. Set can be fine as a 2-star, but else it is more or less like this. You are obviously prioritizing items on the one that you're having as a headliner, and these items is the best for these units. Are we getting to level 9? We will just add in something like Sack, but else this is just more or less the board. It is a bit flexible and it is quite good, so it is definitely something I would look out for if I was you. Especially when you're getting to level 5 and 6 and seeing there is a Crowd Diver Katarina in your shop and you have items that are similar to this. But else the last thing to mention is the augments. Hands of Justice can also be used on Set and Yone, so it is quite good no matter what. Vampirism is good, just give us more heal. And Pandora's to get the specific items that we are looking for. As you can see, I put tank items on Nico, which is probably the case no matter what. Next up we have Edgelord Yone. And this is the case where we are rolling for a Yone and we are not hitting the Crowd Diver, but we are hitting the Edgelord. Are we in this situation, we can go for Yone as the headliner and pick up the Edgelord. But this will be the board that we're looking for instead. The overall stats does say the Crowd Diver version is the better one, but sometimes we can just pick the Crowd Diver and are getting the Edgelord instead. It is a fairly strong board, so it's not like a bad thing that you're hitting this one, but you have to prioritize a bit differently. So obviously we're getting to level 7 and try to place a board similar to this and having 7 in Edgelord as fast as possible. So what we're looking for is to get these 2 units to 3-star and having Yone as the one that we are looking for items for first. Then we can go for Riven and one to her to 3-star as well. Mordekaiser's gonna have these support/tanky items. Meanwhile, Viego is gonna have similar items as Riven and Yone, but gonna be the third prioritize. As soon as we're getting Yone to 3-star and probably also Riven, since nobody is really playing her, we are just going to level 8 and see if we can add in Kayn. Augments that we're looking for is just something specific. You have my sword and also a one that gives us a buff on the Titans that we are playing. Are we getting to level 9? We can just add something like Kiana. And if we are in a situation where we are having this board, we could also start pivot into a bit of a Crowd Diver, and that means we will play something like Katarina, and we could also play something like Set, and then just take out 2 of the Edgelords, just depending on what you are hitting. Let's say you're not hitting Riven at all, you can just pivot items over for Set instead, and then just skip Riven. Then you just have to skip one more, and that is obviously probably gonna be Yasuo. Both options is really good. If you're getting to level 9, you are always in a situation where you're having a quite strong board. Next up we have Riven with 8-bit. And again, you can see a similar units and similar items. This time we are hitting Riven as the headliner and with 8-bit. You could also play the one that you just saw before with Riven as the headliner, just with Edgelord, but this is the preferred one if you're going for Riven as the headliner. So similar as before, now we are just putting in something like Caitlyn to get more in 8-bit, and we will also just playing without items for Yone, but having the prioritize on getting Caitlyn items after we're having items on Riven. Riven's best items is just Bloodthirster, Quicksilver, and Titans, since we don't want her to be stunned, and she will just dash through everyone and just, yeah. And if it's going well with this board, you will just see Riven and Caitlyn just completely destroying the other units. Similar items for Mordekaiser, tank, and also support items. Are we getting extra items that are similar to Riven's? We will put it on Viego. And good augments for this board will be Vampirism, other things that heals us, and even crit. Are we getting to level 9 and having the chance to get 6 in the trade, we will put in Corgi, and then we will put in an 8-bit emblem on Viego. But if we are not in that situation, we can just put in something like Lucian. And for the last one, we have Pentakill with Karthus. This comp is the most picked comp in Challenger, and for a good reason. I just want to mention that I do also have a lot of other videos on this channel, which includes tier list top 5 comps and specific comps. If you want to see, for example, a specific guide for this comp, you can go look for that. Right now I have on the Jax comp and also for Fast 9, but will soon upload more videos. So when we are playing for Pentakill, we are either going for Mordekaiser or Karthus as our headliner. And previously we have often going for Mordekaiser, but the meta is shifting a little bit more over to these 4-cost units. And that means we are mostly looking for Karthus, but we can in fact also play for Viego. But no matter if we are picking up Karthus, Viego or Mordekaiser, we are looking for the one for Pentakill. Depending on which one of these 3 units that we are picking, we want to prioritize items on that unit. And from here, we want to prioritize Mordekaiser as the second one, if not he is the headliner already. So let's say we're having Karthus as the headliner, prioritize items for Karthus, and then for Mordekaiser after, and then we can go for either Kali or Viego. We also want to have 7 in the trade, and that means we need 1 more units. In this case, I'm showing it with an emblem, since this is just a massive buff for this comp. But if this is not the situation and we are dropping this one, we only have 6 in the trade and we want to go to level 9. Are we getting to level 9? We will obviously put in one of the 2 other units for Pentakill. And yes, obviously there is a huge difference on which one we are choosing. Yorick is just way better than Olaf. And are we ending up with something similar to this? We do have one of the best comps for a top 4 and also a contender for top 1. Do you like these kind of tier list and want to see other videos like these with maybe top 5 of the best comps for the current patch? And also specific comps when we go deep in how to play specific comps like Pentakill, Reroll Lux, or you want to learn how to play the new Fast 9/Fast 10, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see a specific one, you can just comment down in the video which one you would prefer and I will try to do my best. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next guide.